I'm here tonight with Virginia Crocker Timmins. She is a first-time candidate for the Chelmsford Board of Selectmen. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So obviously you've been around town. It says you're a 22-year resident, but this is your first run. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your background and who you are?
Sure. I live in town with my husband and my son. He's a sophomore at Chelmsford High School, and also with my mom. I have a corporate background. I spent about 28 years in the defense industry, and my education is in engineering, and I spent most of my career in new business development and strategic initiatives and a few years in profit and loss running programs. And I resigned from that about 3.5 years ago. It was a lifestyle choice, and I started my own business and executive coaching practice. So now I work either one-on-one with individuals or with organizations in areas like strategic planning, leadership development, and process enhancement. So
sounds like a really in-depth career, and
yeah,
you know, a lot of moving parts. So so what motivated you in particular to run for selectman?
well, when I was in the defense industry, I became very familiar with that sector of the federal government, and I worked with our lobbyists on occasion. And I had an interest for a while in doing public service, but I couldn't really pursue it because of the demands of my career. And then I recently got involved with the Route 40 Study Committee, and that was a real positive experience in that we started with the immediate neighborhoods, but really started to branch out and understand what stakeholders across the town wanted for the town and for that area. And as I started doing that, it revitalized my interest in public service. And I gave it a lot of consideration, and I got some suggestions from friends of mine and things, and I really felt that my background and my passion for working for the residents really made the Board of Selectmen the best fit.
Now, as you've been campaigning, have you had an opportunity to reach out to residents, and have you had an opportunity to talk about their concerns and things that may be of importance to them?
Yeah, I've been talking to many residents and leaders across the town. I think there's two themes that tend to come up. One is really how do we be more inclusive of the community and minimize like surprises when things like zoning or new buildings or things like that come up in town. And I think the second area that I hear is a common theme is everybody wants economic strength for Chelmsford, whether it's for the school systems or our seniors or the services that we have, but they want it done in a very managed and careful way, in a way that helps continue to preserve or even enhance the character of the town and why they moved here in the first place.
Now, I know it sounds like you have a pretty strong business background, and you know, we've been looking to try to, I don't know, fill vacancies really in that 129 area. Is that something that you would have strength in helping with, or? Yeah,
I think so, and I've thought about that a lot. I think both my leadership background and maybe helping the town leadership teams with those relationships and forming those relationships. And the other thing I've thought about is I work a lot with businesses on how do you attract new customers. And I think the principles are the same. So, you know, we could start to look at the town and what are all the different touch points that somebody experiences when they're looking at Chelmsford as an opportunity for their business. And how could we improve that? So it's not only the interactions with the leadership team, what experience do they have with the planning board or the building permit, you know, or the zoning board? And I think I have a lot of background that could help facilitate that kind of a look.
Now, I noticed you had sent out a mailing to town meeting reps. You had basically 5 different interest points that you were looking to touch upon. One of them was transparency. We take that, you know, we enjoy that here on Town Talk. We like to try to get as much information out as possible. Talk a little bit about those 5 points and what they mean to you.
Sure. So the first was listening. And for me, I think that people want to be heard and they want to be encouraged to have a voice. And it's not just about listening, but also valuing the different ways of thinking that come forward. The second was advocacy, where we're looking at different points of view and trying to make decisions with deliberate intentions about bettering the quality of lives for all of our residents. Another point in that was proactiveness, and that's not only reaching out but researching any issues or topics that come forward so that we understand not only the top level information, but what are the second and third order and lower level implications that maybe need to be understood and surfaced. That was actually part of the transparency as well. And the fifth was fiscal responsibility. And that is about being good watchdogs over our taxpayers' money and looking at expenses and carefully watching them, and I think very importantly, being very involved in how we grow our revenue base.
Now, have you had an opportunity to sit down and look at the budget and talk to town officials about really where our money goes?
I have. I've met with Paul, and I've met with John Sousa, and I've started some conversations with the assessor's office to understand how all that works. And I've met with a lot of the department leads and gotten better understanding of what they need budget for. And I've also met with Dr. Lang about the school committee budget. Do I know all the details sitting right here? No, but I think I've gotten a lot of touch points to get some general exposure and have a better foundation going into office. So.
One of the things that continually comes up is schools. I mean, obviously, our town is, derived by the quality of our schools. Is that something that's important to you, even though you're not necessarily running for school committee?
Right.
The Board of Selectmen kind of has some direction there. Do you look at the schools as something that needs to be addressed over the next 10, 20 years?
It is important to me. I think it's important. It's important for our children and our youth. If we don't develop them and do it in an exceptional way, they're the ones we're leaving the hands of the town in. I think it's also important as we talk about things like growing the business base in town, because those businesses are going to be looking at things like our school systems as well as other amenities. So I don't think we can take our eye off the ball with the school systems. I've been very happy with the quality of education. I know our facilities are starting to get old, so there's a balancing game in terms of how you deal with the maintenance and things like that. But
now, as far as residents, we have a lot of seniors and people on fixed income. A lot of concern about taxes. Is there any particular approach that you're looking to take to try to help alleviate people's burdens or needs at this point?
I think with the current decision that's been made on the tax split, I really think we need to just let that ride for a year or two and see what it's really doing and whether there is a real benefit there. One of the biggest things I think we can do is work the other side, where we're trying to bring in more revenue into the town and filling some of the empty vacancies in town. That's going to help everybody. So.
Now, this is kind of an interesting year because we're going to be moving into 2020. It looks like the town will be coming up with a new master plan. Is that something you're interested in, and do you see changes for how the town will grow over the next 10 years?
Yes, I'm very interested in how that master plan evolves, and I also think that with some of the background that I have in looking at different visions and strategy and planning approaches, it's something that I'd really like to either be involved in directly or at least keep an eye on and contribute where I can. I think Chelmsford continues to go through inflection points. We're definitely not the same town we were 20 years ago, and there are changes going on in town, and I think it's a question of using the master plan. I think can be a great vehicle to get stakeholder input from across the town and lay out what does it mean for our town to grow and stay economically strong while preserving our open spaces and preserving that character or enhancing it.
Now, I'm actually very curious about this in your background. You went into engineering. What motivated you to do that when you were younger, and is that something you have a passion for?
I actually haven't engineered anything for a very long time. What motivated me to go into it was I had a really strong interest in math and science. And my dad was an engineer, and I had an older brother majoring in engineering and an older sister in computer science. And I decided to start in engineering because I figured if I wanted to go math only or science only or something like that, it would be easier to make a transition from engineering to one of those than to go the other way around. And as I started it, I just loved it. I loved the problem-solving piece of it, and I actually still, throughout my career and even today in my personal life, I use kind of it's a methodology and a discipline you start, in a way of critical thinking, and I'm really glad I did it. I just didn't stay in that field directly when I had my corporate career. So
now you do consulting for small businesses. Is that really the?
No, actually, when in my coaching practice, I work with small businesses, anything from solopreneurs up through like $14 billion corporations, and I also work with nonprofits. And the methods and the practices that I use are really agnostic to the size of business or the type of business, but it's really helping people become better leaders, understanding themselves so they can better master the art of self-leadership, and then helping with business planning and process improvement. So looking at both like the bottom line profitability and top line growth, that's usually what people want.
So it seems like you have some flexibility to be able to take on, the role of selectman or select woman, depending on.
I do. I work from my home now. In my corporate career, one reason I didn't take it on was I was traveling 50 to 80% of my time. But I'm either at my home or at my client's site, and I have flexibility in how I spend my time during the day and the evening.
So even though you haven't necessarily been involved in a whole lot of municipal government side of things, it sounds like you did a number of volunteer activities or volunteering over your career. Can you talk a little bit about those and what you've done?
Sure. Currently, I volunteer on the board of directors for the Lowell Humane Society, for the Lowell Transitional Living Center, and for the Association of Chelmsford Acapella. And I do a lot of work at my church helping to organize service projects for our youth. Some of my past volunteer activities, I've been like a mentor and an instructor at Entrepreneurship for All. And I did most of my volunteering in my corporate career was with my church, just because that's where I had the time to spend. So,
well, it's always good. I mean, everybody kind of sometimes looks at these local positions as kind of a stepping stone, but the Humane Society seems like a pretty good place to give your time and effort.
Yeah, and I'm an officer on that board. I serve as the secretary, and I'm on multiple committees with that board. And every board's a little different how they're set up, but I do committee work on each one of them as well. So we don't just show up once a month for the meeting.
Nice. Are there any particular issues that you'd like to push forward as a member of the Board of Selectmen if you are elected?
Well, we talked about kind of filling the vacancies and some ways to do that. I think the other area would be looking at whether how can we go above and beyond what's legally required in terms of keeping our residents informed and being more inclusive and getting their inputs. And, I think that people are busy today, and you can't ever over-communicate. That's one of the things I've learned in industry, and I still work with companies on how do you over-communicate. So can we be more active on social media? Can we be more proactive to let people know before the public hearing comes up, maybe months before, that we're thinking about looking at something that might affect their immediate area? So I'd really like to look at how do we strengthen those inclusive conversations above and beyond what's legally required.
I couldn't agree with you more on that, especially, you know, we run Town Talk, which is a not only a cable TV show, but we have a Facebook group as well. And I know Chelmsford News, and there are several other Chelmsford News sites that are dedicated to that same mission.
Yeah.
And even the Lowell Sun is, you know, really kind of in that same ballpark of trying to just get that information out there, because sometimes people aren't available and they really do miss notices or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good thought.
And everybody, different people like communication in different ways. So there may be some people that like to sit down and watch hours of board meetings. You know,
God love them.
or an hour of Town Talk. There may be others that get their information in those little snippets on Facebook and other ways. So, yeah.
Do you see yourself as one of those members that will be attending not only all of the Board of Selectmen meetings, but every other meeting that exists throughout town, or would you kind of pick and choose based on whatever assignments you may have?
I know there'll be liaison assignments. I think that I would want to be aware of what's going on across the board. And I also think that I would look at how can I most effectively work with or stay informed from the different boards to which the different assignments or committees to which I'm assigned. You know, do I need to be at every meeting, or are there specific things they would like me to focus on? Those types of things.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Any other things you'd like to add before I have you ask for the vote?
It's been a real honor just to run. I feel so privileged for all the people that I have met and for the time they've spent with me. And if nothing else, that's been just a great experience. So I thank the town of Chelmsford for that, and everyone who has met with me.
All right. Well, it's a Dennis-ready tradition, which is why we do it.
Okay.
And I always found it awkward, but I make everybody do it because of him and honor him. So we're going to ask you to look at the camera and ask the voters for the vote.
Sure. So my name's Virginia Crocker Timmins. I'm running for one of the open seats on the Board of Selectmen, and I'm asking for your vote on April 2nd. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming on the show, and we
Thank
wish you
you.
the best of luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.